You're ready to go.
All right, let's kick it off. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad that you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, we are pleased to deliver a dream pairing of global entertainment executives in which I am referring to as the smartest people in the room, Hollywood edition. More on that in just a moment. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the interview. And also, please make sure your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our program sponsors for without their support, we could not keep this series free. Thank you to First Horizon Bank, Buffkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome back my frequent collaborator and good friend, Ralph Simon. Ralph has enjoyed a spectacular 30-plus year career in a variety of prominent fields. He's a music industry visionary who co-founded major indie leaders Zomba and Jive Records. He signed talent, grew a globally successful music publishing company, and managed some of the world's top record producers. He was also EVP at Capitol Records and Blue Note and foresaw the potential of mobile phones and social media very early on. He's one of the founders of the global mobile entertainment and mobile social media industry, popularly known as the father of the ringtone. Ralph has consistently been at the forefront of mobile media innovation, mobile learning, social media ideation, next stage AI, and mobile video. He correctly predicted that the future belongs to screenagers everywhere who will run their social media lives, music, streaming, and connecting on their mobile phones. He's currently developing an exciting new music series for TV and social media called The Virtuosos. He's also responsible for curating and programming some of the world's most important startup and future music and tech gatherings worldwide, and is founder and chairman of Mobilium Global. Welcome back, Ralph. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, Tom. Great to be here with you today, and fantastic that we have a special guest with us.
And joining Ralph as today's special guest is Mr. Sandy Climan. Sandy is president of Entertainment Media Ventures Incorporated, founded in 1999 by him. EVM is an active media investment and strategic advisory work with particular focus on innovative technologies and entities currently impacting the traditional boundaries of business, media, and entertainment. He's an investor, producer, and considered a media visionary. Throughout his career, Sandy has held senior management positions in the media and entertainment industry. He served as corporate executive vice and president of worldwide business development of Universal Studios, where he also oversaw corporate international strategy, strategic marketing, and 5 studio operating divisions with $1.4 billion in revenue. Sandy was the founding head of CAA's corporate practice, working on global companies, including Sony Corporation on its acquisition of Columbia Pictures, Matsushita Electric on its acquisition of MCA Universal, Credit Lyonnais and its restructuring of MGM, Coca-Cola, Nynex, Bell Atlantic, Pacific Telesis, and other Fortune 500 companies. Additionally, while at CAA, Sandy was part of the senior management team for 12 years, representing talent including Robert De Niro, Robert Redford, Kevin Costner, Danny DeVito, and Michael Mann, as well as many prominent film and television production companies. Notable achievements include executive producer of the first digital live action 3D motion picture, U2 3D, and producer of The Aviator, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, for which Sandy was awarded a British Academy Award and a Golden Globe Award. Sandy has served as a bridge between Silicon Valley and Hollywood since the mid-1990s and has been an active venture investor, board member, and senior advisor to numerous entrepreneurial companies in media, technology, fintech, and healthcare. He holds an MBA from Harvard Business School, a Master's of Science degree in Health Policy and Management from Harvard, the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and a Bachelor of Arts from Harvard College. Please welcome these two rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Please take it away, Ralph.
Thank you very much, Tom. Sandy, welcome to this great smartest people in the room. And it's a privilege to have you with us today. You're in Los Angeles, and as it turns out, we've got Los Angeles and Nashville paired together to bring the session today to smartest people in the room. So Sandy, great privilege to have you with us. And as Tom had said when he was introducing you, your focus on disruptive technologies and entities that impact traditional boundaries of business, media, and entertainment is literally the playbook for what is happening today. So in all of these years you've been involved in it, and the 12 years you were with CIA as one of its founding agents and executives, give us some kind of sense as to what you're currently engaged with.
Well, Ralph, thank you for actually hosting me, and Tom, thank you for having me join you here. I just want to take issue with it. If the title, "The Smartest People in the Room," are the people in the chat room, and the other smartest people in the room are the people changing the industry right now. And it's a great moment. By the way, in the chat, I love seeing my friend John Ruby, who is and continues to innovate in the digital distribution of music and visual entertainment that highlights the best of the music industry. I see David McCone from South Africa. I mean, obviously people have come from far and wide, which just tells me that there's so little on streaming media to watch that they're here. But in any event, I'm constantly humbled and put back as to what the notion of the smartest person in the room needs to be. Forget that I'll never be that, but as I was talking earlier with Ralph and Tom about, when I was growing up, on a good day, how did you get your information? If you had any resources whatsoever, you had an encyclopedia, and if you had some resources, it was Britannic or the World Book. My parents got week by week another letter from the A&P, and that was our encyclopedia. And there are many here who are probably too young to remember the A&P as the Great Atlantic and Pacific, food company that we bought our groceries at. And, there was television, which basically had very little. Fortunately, we had the beginnings of PBS and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Movies were sporadic. There was a library where you could get books. Today, we are every second, you can get anything you want to know. Every lecture that surpasses any Ivy League institution, any entertainment, any book is available to you. The greatest minds, the greatest thoughts, and we are in a world not just of lifelong entertainment, but of lifelong education. And I think that the place that I spend the bulk of my time is thinking about not where the hockey puck is, but where the hockey puck will be. Because we have moved so far from a world where entertainment was a closed club, whether it was a closed music club or it was a closed television club or a film club, and they were all quite separate, to a world where we are basically building community rather than building products, where we are building dialogue rather than building an experience that ends, where we are inspirational rather than aspirational, where we are connecting people in ways we've never connected them, because people, we worried that in the early days of an AOL chat room, that technology would divide us and it would put us in a place that had issues of truth and authenticity. Now, we do have those problems with social media. I do worry that news and social media are taking us down paths that are, not productive. But the countervailing forces of what technology has done in terms of bringing us together in the right ways, in communities, and entertainment, and particularly music, are the on-ramps to those communities. When you get people talking about ideas, emotions, and music is better than anything we have to stir immediate emotion and connectivity, followed by film and television, followed by short form video. The sense of sharing and discovery, and the sense of people basically all having the same dreams. And then if our world of entertainment merging with e-commerce, merging with gaming, merging with streaming music, all comes together in a positive way, adding education, adding healthcare, adding banking, adding all of the services that are in our lives. To me, we are on a path, if we do it right, to providing a comprehensive, call it a metaverse, call it a platform, call it a community, where we serve people in ways that we never were able to before. And if we do it right, instead of dividing people, we democratize access and bring people together.
So, Sandy, here's an interesting thing I've wanted to ask you today, because in your earlier career, you were involved in some of the most important acquisitions by Japanese media companies into the American media environment, and two in particular, the Sony acquisition of Columbia Pictures, which you were centrally involved in. You were also very centrally involved in the acquisition of MCA and Universal by Matsushita, the Japanese technology company. And then you've also been involved in a whole range of really interesting technology companies that you've been involved in, where you blend your experience in entertainment, in health, in deal making, and so forth. When you were involved in those major acquisitions that changed the very horizon of American entertainment, the essential difference today is that there's so much more that is going on. So could you say that TikTok today would have been like Matsushita was in acquiring MCA and Universal in terms of the prominence of these new tech companies that are driving the future of entertainment?
I think the concept was too early when they did the deals that they did. And Sony and Matsushita went on different paths, and we've seen how that has played out. Where we are today, which I'll get to in a minute, is the same, the same forward thinking. The difference is that how you manage that forward thinking today is very different than it was managed in the 1990s, late 1980s, 1990s, when those deals were done. So with Sony, I think Sony's done a marvelous job. They went through a lot of pain to get here, and I think I knew all of their CEOs and senior managements. But what Sony did, which was remarkable, was the acquisition of CBS Records was prescient. And the one thing that I'll say is, except for the moment where Napster and the digital economy, piracy, and all of those things called into question the transformation of the music business, other than that, music has been on an extraordinary growth path forever. It is truly global. Where we are today, allows for discovery of new acts, the sense that the cost of bringing forward new artists is very different than it once was, the sense of how artists, connect with their audiences is in ways, I think, remarkable, that it's not just the major artists that have a strong voice in the world. It is a broad range of artists that can build large audiences globally, that blend, if they choose to, not just their music, and music always comes with a message, but also their philanthropic activities, there are social impact activities in ways that can mobilize groups. But Sony, when you look at the Sony Corporation today, it has all of the makings of the most important businesses in the world. And it will be, one of the questions will be how they interact with each other, because they have a dominant position in games. They have a dominant position in music. They have a dominant position in the creative arts and in television, film, digital media. They just bought Crackle. And they also have consumer electronics. And I think we will see a change in consumer electronics shortly, where frankly, whether it's Vizio or whether it's Walmart and Hisense, potentially with Comcast, making the glass the replacement for whatever the internet box or the cable box once was. Ultimately, William Wang at Vizio had the vision that that while the consumer electronics side would commoditize, it would be like a razor and razor blade. You've got a nano cent of plastic in a Bic razor, but the razor blades actually have to be replaced and they have to be high quality. And so Sony, I think, is positioned well for the future. What Matsushita went through in Panasonic is that they took a different turn, but all of the assets turned out brilliantly. And when you look at where they are today in the hands of Comcast in its consolidated state with NBC Universal, and that's where Universal is, or you look at the extraordinary success Lucian Grange has had with the Universal Music Group and all who preceded him in building this gargantuan, innovative company. And I would say all of the music companies, the global music companies, everyone I talk to at them, as well as probably everyone on this particular gathering today, think about technology even more so than people in film and television. I mean, I think in film and television, we think about how it's going to get to you. In the sense of the music industry, they think about, how does technology bring me into a daily interaction and a richer, more complex interaction with my audience in every way? And how do I serve you better? How do I bring delight and happiness to your life while I inspire you, while I motivate you, while I bring you towards eventually commerce? So to me, having gone through the transactions then, if you look at a ByteDance today or a TikTok, I think all of the major players, whether it's Amazon, Apple, ByteDance with TikTok, I once said that, there's a chess game being played in the consolidation of the entertainment industry. And I said, the real question is who's playing two-dimensional chess and who's playing three-dimensional chess? Amazon's playing three-dimensional chess. They understand that, as there was a New York Times on tech column that questioned why they were in the video business at all, forget MGM. And they said, what? It just doesn't serve their purposes. And yet they don't understand that columnist I took issue with, because the reality is that entertainment it's not just the water cooler, it is the emotional gathering place around which you collect community. And the question with a three-dimensional player is, how much of your life can I service in a positive way? How much of your time can I occupy in a positive way? Without overcharging you, how much of your discretionary income can you share with me in a way that actually, instead of monopoly power driving up prices, we're going to drive prices down? And obviously we want to see competition, but what the consumer, I think, wants is a place that nourishes their soul and enables them to participate in everything from entertainment to community service, to community activities, to all of the daily activities, whether it's healthcare, pharmacy, banking, education, gaming, all of the things that circle around you. They want a seamless way to enter all those worlds when they want to, in ways that are positive. And what I would say with specifically TikTok, to sort of round this out, is there was just an article that I thought was fascinating. as to whether TikTok, now having integrated e-commerce and a lot of commercial services directly into their videos, is becoming the US version of WeChat in China. I've been waiting forever for the app-driven economy to become the true commerce engine, the sense of platform that we see elsewhere in the world. And I think what the goal here is to draw everything together to serve the consumer, and the consumer as part of a family, of a community, of groups of interest in ways that have never been served before.
So Sandy, that's some couple of elements there that I want to pick up on, but just before we do, we just want to say a special hello to Terry O'Gara, to Warren Campbell, to our good friend Susan Brazer. Hi, Susan. Stacey Turner, Siobhan Dargan, Sean Malatesta, great mobile executive, Matt Levinsky, John Waderek, John Cunningham, Jerry Lembo. So just a few of the great people that are on this. When you spoke about this new kind of compact that's happening with the major entertainment players, you spoke about Sir Lucian Grange, of course, the valuation of the company. They just sold 10% for $4 billion, and it's quite likely that their valuation will hit 50 billion by the time they have their Amsterdam-based IPO. And even Sir Len Blavatnik and Warner Music Group, now $35 billion valuation. But do you think that we're in a race to the bottom in terms of the income that will go to the creators? And also, do you think that we're in a new phase of this momentum in a post-COVID world where the emotional health of the country is fueled and colored by entertainment? And it's not the entertainment universe. Would you refer to it as the entertainment metaverse?
Well, there's a lot that needs to be thought of here. Firstly, the interesting question is, I see the next phase of all this is that the artists, through artist representatives, and I have a great affection for artist representatives, the artists earning more. And how that will happen, I'm not 100% sure. One of the, I think, questions that Spotify and others have to look at, and I don't think anything disintermediates those, gargantuan businesses, is two things. One, the record labels and the music companies and the artists, they want to have a direct relationship with the consumer. So the question is, how does that happen? Two is, in terms of earning more money, we may see some artists, not all, decide that they will move their creativity to smaller platforms that reach fewer people where they can monetize better. We're seeing fan-based, entrants, whether it's Patreon or Patreon, I never quite know how to pronounce it, or the global music companies basically launching direct fan-oriented businesses as adjuncts to increase artists' earnings. But I think that there could be a further disintermediation of some of the global platforms into what I would consider more specialized platforms, if in fact it were perceived that the earnings would not only be greater, but in some ways the sort of sense of connecting with fans was richer than in platforms where it is not as tight and not as well moderated. In terms of the sense of metaverse itself, I think coming out of the pandemic, I think we're going to see the following. I think people are desperate to get back to live music. So I think from an artist earnings point of view, a Live Nation point of view, we're going to see an enormous, just a burst of energy. And let's hope that nothing interrupts that. I don't see a diminution. Actually, UTA and others have just done research independently that have looked at the question as to whether the sort of 80 to 90% of those in Gen Z who have participated in virtual events will stop participating. The answer is no. And I see actually, the sense of these virtual events as ways to connect fans between the live events. I don't think virtual will ever replace live, but I think the virtual events will get richer in terms of how they, bond fans with artists. And they are almost marketing tools and, as I say, transition points to the main events where you may be able to be with an artist directly. I also look at, models like Dice.fm out of the UK. And people think of them as a ticketing company, and they're not. They're a platform. And what Dice does, which, again, we'll see it more prevalently across the US as they expand the number of cities that they are involved with. But obviously in the UK, New York, they are focused on the sub 1,000 seat venues. I mean, they do go up higher, but really their view is to create a platform unlike a Live Nation, which is, or AEG, which, dominate, arenas and stadiums and larger venues but you go to those quarterly, every half year, like every year, it can be expensive. It can be, not as accessible as opposed to clubs where you go weekly. And what Dice does is it takes you, your friends and family, and it basically scrapes all the data to tell you when the bands that are of interest to you are playing close to you in what small venues. It helps the bands book those venues more efficiently than has ever been done before. And it then provides all kinds of services that allow the bands to move around the world without sometimes lugging their equipment. So to me, we're seeing new models come forward that are rapidly and impressively changing the opportunities for fans and artists. And that helps the monetization of artists.
So, Tom, can you just go to our first slide? I just wanted people to see Sandy's company name and logo. If you could just go to that first slide. And then we'll touch on a couple of other things. There's Entertainment Media Ventures, Sandy, that's the company. But
everyone has tried to get me to change this logo, but no one's come up with anything better. I mean, I can't tell if it looks like I'm a pawnbroker. We did this in a weekend, and God knows, once you've done something, it sticks.
That's
some
right.
People think it looks like the Jetsons. Some people think it, looks like it belongs in another era that's past. I have no idea.
Well, it still looks pretty hip to me, and it basically shows the different planets around which you circulate, entertainment, media, ventures, which really is synonymous with you. And talking about that, I'm always fascinated by the fact that some years ago, 14 years ago, in fact, you had produced the first ever full-length 3D movie by a music artist. You managed to convince U2 to make a 3D movie. And why I bring up that particular subject is, of course, U2 are a major act, but also more importantly, just give us some sense as to how you tapped into that 3D area and whether that particular project with a band who, even at that time in 2007, had such impact.
Well, firstly, I did not convince U2 to make a 3D movie. The Shapiro brothers did that very well, and they somehow found a way to U2. And it was Pete and John and others. Steve Schler came on from Reality Digital. And, what ended up happening was they were early in the process that was being funded by the children of Art Modell and Art Modell. Art Modell owned the Baltimore Ravens. And they, John Modell, who is an enormous music fan and a genius at sound engineering and a musician himself, along with his brother David, who was the president of the Ravens, decided to back this company to do what was the first digital live action 3D concert film. So you had, all of a sudden, you had new technology to film, which was digital, which is now commonplace, and really rapidly changing the way we think about making films. And then you had 3D. Now, U2 3D was in only 600 theaters when it was released, which was unfortunate because it was very early. So it is hard to see the film then. And I'm hoping they do release it again. but it was the Vertigo Tour, which was a very large tour, largely shot in South America. I came on early in the process to make sure that the company and the technology moved forward and the film actually got made and got finished. And you had experimentation everywhere. Catherine Owens, a visionary director who had grown up with the band, but really was more of a visual artist than a movie maker. Mark Pellington was working with her, who was a great director. Catherine's vision of how it was less important with the technology than how the technology was used to do something that was unthinkable. It put you on stage with the band in a way that it took your breath away. And
Did
there's
you
a lot of
was there IMAX screening of that movie as well?
the IMAX screenings in 3D were filmed, and there was no IMAX digital at that point. So we did do IMAX, and it was very large, but the digital ones to me were the ones that actually blew you away. When the band saw it at Cannes, I mean, honestly, people had no idea if the people in the front of the theater were in the film or they were, because you had audience in the film. Well, whether they were in the Palais or whether they were in the film. I hosted a screening for my son's Matthew's 10th birthday party at the Real D screening room in Beverly Hills. And I invited a woman who had photographed 400 concerts, a woman named Hallie McGrath, and she was a concert photographer who was a friend of ours, who we knew from Coachella. And, you know, we stayed in the mosh pit with her once with my son, Joe. And she was running back and forth up and down the aisle throughout the whole screening. And I turned to her afterwards. She looked almost exhausted. I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "I've never seen anything like that before. 400 concerts, I've never experienced it." And the band, who had never seen themselves, Bono said to me, "You know, we actually never look at ourselves. And this is really the first time we've seen ourselves." And he said, "The interesting thing is, when we are in the River Plata Stadium in Argentina on a hot night," he said, "we're so far apart, we can't even see each other on stage. And this film put us directly in the music." And that's what fans loved about it. And it was the difference between 3D being used by someone who understood its power and what it could achieve, and later 3D where it was just gimmicky. So, you know, you have Jim Cameron, who's a genius, who knows how to use 3D, or Michael Mann, who knows how to use digital technology. And to me, U2 3D will hopefully be brought out one day to study why dimensionality adds this extraordinary connection to the music. And ultimately, it's literally peering into the band's psyche and their heart and what they're really doing in this film. It truly brings you close to the creative energy of the band and the sort of intimacy that comes with that. And that's what 3D achieved. I don't know that we will see that again. I will say it was listed as one of the top 10 films the year it was released, which was shocking because so few people saw it. I'm hoping more see it in the future.
So, Sandy, if you're looking at some of the modern trends, I know that you spend a lot of your time looking at the international markets. I know that you see that there's a lot of potential in bringing news and social media that have turned everything into sound bites, well, sort of. But just give us a sense of what you are seeing in terms of trends when you were early into 3D movie production. And now we're looking at social media's next generation. We spoke about TikTok, but of course, if you even look at what happened in the law courts this week in the United States, with Facebook actually winning 2 court cases, one in particular that said that they didn't need to have to get rid of Instagram. Give us your sense of what you're seeing with the GAFAN's company, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Netflix.
Well, these companies are reshaping everything we understand. And again, these are the companies playing 3-dimensional chess. And trust me, they're thinking like Vulcans, not like accountants. And what I would say is, you hope that they make the right decisions morally as to what they do. And, again, the thing that I think about technology is every positive can be a negative and every negative can be a positive. The same technology that can print a 3D printed artificial limb for a child can make a gun that is plastic and can't be traced. You can make a gun at home, or you can use the technology to help people medically. And that's true with information and entertainment as well. If we are an echo chamber, and we basically are, as the documentary that Our Social Dilemma shows us, it's just an echo chamber, then all we're doing is creating alternate realities for people. And the danger is that when you amplify things that are not true, you may find people who believe it because it's comfort food for them, but you don't want that to happen. When I was growing up, you had Walter Cronkite, Chet Huntley, David Brinkley, John Chancellor. You had people who were, you know, intellectual titans, and Edward R. Murrow, people who were intent on the integrity of editorial content and the authenticity of the facts in news. And what I find today, and it's not across the board, is that news and social media tend to divide us rather than bring us together. And what I believe is that storytelling is what brings us together. If you think about it, most people, firstly, if you give people prosperity, they actually don't want to fight with each other and they don't want to go to war. So at the end of the day, what you really want is the sense of optimism and opportunity. And you also want people to see each other the way they see themselves. I mean, I believe, I travel the world, and I couldn't be more excited about the fact that we are in entertainment on a global platform. But everything's on a global platform today. And what isn't on a global platform will be on a global platform. And the reality is that, when I go to, I was in Saudi Arabia, and I was at a friend's house, and there were a lot of business people standing around. And there were these two young girls who were just lovely. And they were like, you could see that they were bored meeting investment bankers. And they're talking to me, and they're thinking, and the minute they understood I was in entertainment, they perked up and their ears went up like Doberman pinchers. And one wants to be a director and one wants to be an actor. And the reality is everyone's family is the same everywhere in the world. The kids are the same. There are differences, but we are more similar than we are different. And the fact that in esports, we are going to have champions from all around the world, and that we can create influencers, celebrities, cultural ambassadors to bring people together, that is the role of entertainment. And that is exciting to me. Now, as for the large companies, it is in how they use their extraordinary reach to enable the nobler opportunities rather than to accentuate the negative opportunities. It is too early to tell how that will play out, but what I will say is that I have faith in people, and what I'm hoping is that, and this is something that I truly am optimistic about, is that the workforces of young people who are not there just to make money, but they are at these companies because they are on a mission, they may keep those companies on track better than the leadership. And if the leadership actually listens to the people who are doing the work within the company, it is that collaboration that gives me hope for the future.
So Sandy, you've been a board member of the UCLA School of Theater, Film and TV for many years. Are you seeing new methods of teaching the basically producers, directors, entrepreneurs of the future, of them also keying into what you've just said about the new form of the metaverse as opposed to just a singular universe?
I think anybody who is being trained as a creative artist, if they are looking at a legacy model, they're going to have a lot more trouble than people who look at the sense and the need to be versatile across all media. It is about IP. It is about storytelling. And I think that the sense of how you tell stories and the stories you want to tell helps guide how they interact with other forms of reaching their audience. It's funny, when I started working with the Ford Motor Company, we did 17 years of work we did 150 commercials for them in terms of acquiring talent. They would ask what the Q score was for TV. Now they want to know how many influencers you have. But I thought one of the most impactful examples of this is that Anthony Hopkins, an 82-year-old Academy Award winning actor, Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins is on TikTok dancing and showing that at his age, no matter how serious you think he is, no matter how many awards fill his shelves, he can goof it up with his audience, and they want that intimacy with him. People want to be in Bobby Flay's kitchen, not watching him yell at people, but at him talking to them about the sort of small parts of his life that make their lives richer by feeling connected to him. And in a way, it's actually, they are connected to him. I think people listen to their audiences today very differently than they did in the past. And I look at the life stories of artists. One of the things is in fine arts, what makes something why is Pablo Picasso Pablo Picasso? Because of his life journey. Why is Roy Lichtenstein Roy Lichtenstein? Because of his life journey. We never really applied that as thoroughly to the other artists, whether they're culinary artists or actors or musicians. Now we do. We want to know all about you, because in a way, part of the enjoyment of the creative process is the enjoyment of living life through the eyes of someone you admire.
Wow. Still wanted to say a shout out and hello to Casey Resnick, to Charles DeAtri, to Chris Clapp, Craig Isaac, Craig Money, people that have joined us today. And Sandy, you'd mentioned about international and things opening up internationally. Of course, the United States is much more international than it's ever been. But tell us some of the territories that you've been spending time in. I know you spend time in one of the largest population countries in the world, which is Indonesia. Why on earth did you choose to give focus to Indonesia and its 276 million people?
Well, firstly, as I say, people are the same all over the world.
Right.
So I was at the World Economic Forum, and I got a message. I rarely get messages because there are far more interesting people than me to talk to, from my friend Aninja Bakri, who was not at that. I did not know him at the time. And he said, do you mind if we sit down? So we sit down at the Congress Center, and he starts, and this is 4 or 5 years ago, and he starts to ask me questions about entertainment and building. They, clearly, and I didn't know, obviously I know the name of the company. They're a very large company headquartered in Jakarta. They own television stations, but he was looking more globally. He was looking at Hollywood. He was looking beyond the Indonesian and ASEAN marketplace. And by the way, later I asked him why he actually contacted me, and he said, that I was the only one whose biography at the entire World Economic Forum had the word entertainment in it. So he figured that would be so that's how I got to him. So we actually became friends, and we talked at length about, the sense, and it's a belief of mine that was a belief then and is coming to fruition now, that there are going to be centers of creative excellence all over the world. There's going to be in the Middle East, which will be Saudi Arabia. There will be in India, China, and in the ASEAN region, it will be Indonesia. And they have a marvelous storytelling culture. And so on my own dime, I went to Jakarta. And I did stop at Bali on the way, but I went to Jakarta, and you've got 17,000 islands. You've got 270 million people. You've got the largest Islamic population in the world. The first night I was there, they own One Pride, which is the leading Indonesian mixed martial arts league. And you could have been in Las Vegas. I mean, it was just like being anywhere in the world. The only difference was the fighters were much nicer to each other after they fought. And they each came out representing the culture of the island they came from and their history. And then they beat the crap out of each other. And then they hugged each other. And then they talked so glowingly about themselves and the league. And I got to see the creative energy that was there. And they own a significant portion of the, you would call it the Marvel universe. They call it the Boomy Langit universe. Over 1,000 um, comic book and superhero and warrior characters. They're on film 3 in that series. And frankly, most of the West ignored Indonesia. When I was with the CEO of the company, who at the time was a CEO, had run for president of Indonesia, was the father of a ninja, and Ninja is now the CEO. I said to him, I said, most Americans don't understand Indonesia, to which he looked at me in this gargantuan office, which was the entire top floor of their tower in Jakarta, and said, most Americans ask what part of Bali Jakarta's on. And obviously it's on, Sumatra. And it's just understanding that, our view is so narrow. And the reality is it isn't today, because that company today is being assailed by every streamer, because the next 100 million subscribers, possibly, certainly at a lower, subscription fee, but the next 100 million subscribers, now that the US is saturated and Western Europe is saturated, is going to come from Indonesia and the ASEAN region. Plus, they're partnered, and this to me is the brilliance of all creative worlds. They're partnered with Joko Anwar. They're partnered with the 5 best directors in Indonesia and Malaysia, and they're finding the next group of talent after that. Joko's a CAA client. It's one big world. And when you think about, when I talk to people, one of the companies I advise is Bingy, which is, the place people gather to discuss what to watch on streaming media, because the more services there are, the more people don't know what to watch. So they talk about what to binge on bingy.tv. And you look at it, and it's Lupin from France, it's Tehran from Israel and the Middle East, it's Hard from Brazil, it's 1,000 different series from Mexico. Who Killed Sarah is 1,000 different series that come from places that you would never expect, with artists, filmmakers, actors that take your breath away. And the thing that I would end on here, just because it's such a profound thought to me, is when I was at MGM, we made the sequel to La Cage aux Folles. And we released it. It was French and Italian. And if you had a foreign language film back then, it would play in one art house in New York, and it might play in an art house in LA, and it was done. You had to dub it to show it in a theater anywhere else, and certainly it would never show up on TV. Today, we are watching things in subtitles, and we don't think twice about it. I think of the fact that Warner Brothers passed on Dances with Wolves because it was, amongst other issues they had, like the length, like giving Costner final cut, was 1/3 of it was in the Lakota Indian dialect. And they didn't think people would read subtitles. Of course, when it won the Academy Award and went on to be one of the most financially successful films in history, they were proven wrong. And Orion ended up with the film. But to me, we have evolved into a place where things that never would have been possible when I was growing up or when I entered the industry are commonplace today.
So Sandy and Tom, we'd love to just show some shots. Let's do a quick run through of some of the personalities that you've worked with, Sandy. Tom, let's go to our next slide, and we'll just stay quite quickly on each one, but let's go over to Tom's magic fingers. The index finger.
What worries me is I'm going to look too young in these photos, and it's going to be depressing to me.
So that's you there with Steven Spielberg.
All right, so I'm going to give you the 30 seconds on this shot where I do look remarkably young. And by the way, I did like that tie. I don't know where it is today. But Steven Spielberg, this was in Berlin. And it was at the reception after the president of Germany had given Steven Spielberg, a Jewish filmmaker, the 11th degree Iron Cross at the Schloss Bellevue, the White House of Germany, in recognition of having made Schindler's List. and you think about all the humanity, the sort of sense of history coming together in that moment. And you think about the contributions of someone like Steven Spielberg, who, in my opinion, with that film, reset all dialogue on the Holocaust, but more than the Holocaust, on all Holocausts, and on how people need to think about each other as guardians of one another, in the sense of elevating Oskar Schindler for what he had done. And the last but not least, when you think about the final scenes in that film, which are all of the descendants of the people Oskar Schindler saved, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, families, generations. You know, this is the power of all entertainment. This is the power of music when it tells a story that people take away from that story. Films, when you can tell a story like this, which is hard to watch, but so important to be affected by. And to think that the government of Germany, sponsored by German companies, revisited their history through this film and honored it in this way, this gives you hope for the future.
Let's go to the next shot, Tom. This is a rather young-looking Bill
We're
Gates.
both young. We're both skinnier too, which is great.
Let's go to the next shot. That's you.
And, you know, the reason I love Ron Howard, there are many reasons other than the films he's made, is because it is a life dedicated to the arts. He started as an actor, and you know, when he made Grand Theft Auto, it was a risk that someone took on him, and yet Apollo 13, he and Brian Grazer, but Apollo 13, the quintessential film about how a team comes together to save people. It is a model for teaching. This film is beyond entertaining. It's riveting, but it is used in schools to show how collaboration and how you make decisions with imperfect information.
Amazing. Let's go to the next shot. Now, there's an interesting one. This is when you had produced a Scorsese movie called The Aviator. And just tell us on the left and right of that shot there.
Well, you know, the danger of being next to Leonardo DiCaprio is however ugly you are, you're uglier when you're next to Leo. You know, so, you know, it's a very bad moment when you actually are surrounded by people like this. Marty, of course, was the genius. You know, I was partnered with Michael Mann, and Leo had gone to Michael Mann at age 20. So the story of the thing in 30 seconds, Leo's mother had told him about Howard Hughes when he was young. He was fascinated, and there's reasons to be fascinated with Howard Hughes. And Leo, obviously, even then I did not know him, but obviously had this inspiration for storytelling. He goes to Michael Mann at roughly age 20. And it says, let's go work. Everyone wants to work with Michael Mann because Michael Mann has brought out the best acting of every actor he's ever worked with. I remember walking into Charlie Rose with Michael Mann, and out of the studio was walking Tom Cruise. First thing Tom said is, when are we working together? And obviously Collateral came much later. So, you know, Michael had decided not to direct the film. He spent 10 years developing it. The John Logan script, I thought I was going to read it over 2 nights. It was so long. I couldn't stop reading it. That's how brilliant the words were. And we brought in Marty, who had, you know, really, he took the script. I mean, most of the time he develops it, but here he took the script. And Graham had worked with Marty on Gangs of New York. He had worked with Michael on Financing Ali. And, you know, Graham really financed the film as an independent film, even though it was released by Warner Brothers and Miramax in the United States. You know, 65+% of the financing came from his company's foreign sales and their own investment. And nobody wanted to make this movie. 1, it was expensive. 2, they were worried it would go over budget. Well, you know, you're going to have a plane cut off the tops of buildings in Beverly Hills and all kinds. It's a period piece. You've got, you know, film premieres. You've got stage pieces with large audiences. And also, as Jim Giannopoulos, my friend who now runs Paramount, said, and rightly so, I don't know how you get out of a film where the protagonist loses his mind in the last scene. And somehow
Yeah.
Marty made that work. Between John Logan and Michael Mann, turning it over to Marty with Leo, who was now 30, 10 years later, and he was roughly the age of Howard Hughes in the film. And he had matured to the point at which he was Howard Hughes. I'll tell you one last thing for those that see it. You won't, unless it's pointed out, Marty was such a genius. He shot the first third in washed out color of the 1920s when they were making Hell's Angels. He shot the middle section in Technicolor with vibrant colors. That was classic of that period. And he ended the film, the last third, with modern color. And he takes you so seamlessly through that transition. It affects you emotionally, but you never would notice it.
True artistry. Let's go to the next shot.
You know, me and Dr. Ruth, if I listened to Dr. Ruth, I'd actually have a better social life. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Dr. Ruth Westheimer, very well-known sexologist who really preceded many of the, well, I wouldn't quite say that Pornhub or the porn channels have succeeded her, but she really created a landmark in television. Let's go to the next shot.
By the way, Dr. Ruth is telling you the stuff your parents never told you.
That is true. She certainly did that.
And they should have.
Sandy, this logo that we've just got up on the screen now is the School of Film and Entertainment that you founded.
I founded this in partnership with my good friend and co-founder, J.P. Park, Jungwon Patrick Park, who runs Elite Education, which is really a 30-year pioneer in educational training, test prep, and online school. And I helped partner him with Minerva, which is the Ben Nelson's innovative, curriculum for the next generation of college and high school. And this school was created for all the people who can't wait. Right now, as I said, you can get your liberal arts education. You can start as young as you want, and it is up to you to basically use all the tools at your disposal to get the liberal arts education, which we used to reserve for college. The reality is that you should be learning every day. So what do you really need? For those that have the creative impulse, we wanted to create a training facility that was both academically recognized and degree granting, as well as giving you the certifications in the intense training from the best professionals in Hollywood to democratize the sense that if you want to be a storyteller, whatever it is, actor, director, writer, make short films, whatever it is you want to do, we will bring the best minds to you, and we will put you through our program so that at the end of that, the certification we give, and not just us, but others as well, may be more important than a college degree to have a career. Most people, the future of education is that you will learn every day about the world, and that is what you need to be curious, and you need to keep up with all that is available to you. On the other side, we want to keep you as skilled and up to date, and to give you individual tutoring and mentoring to make sure that in your professional life, you are well trained and well coached every day for the future of your career.
Let's go to the next slide, please, Tom. Here's the gentleman on the left is the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, and you've been an advisor to the WEF for many years.
Well, I've been blessed to be the media and entertainment advisor to the World Economic Forum for over 25 years, which makes me old. That's really what that tells you. And in this photo, you've got Hilda Schwab on the on the far right. You've got Professor Schwab, Klaus Schwab, on the left. You've got Elizabeth Daly, the dean of the USC School of Cinematic Arts, who has been a pioneer and a genius at arts education, and a great friend and mentor to me. And what I would say is Professor Schwab and Mrs. Schwab, they are the two of the greatest philanthropists I've ever met. But more than that, they bring together, they do what I try to do. What does a good agent do? One is he helps strategize, coach, and bring forward a client's career. But what you're also doing at all times is bringing together people, whether it's in business or in a creative project, who otherwise might not have met each other, because something inside you tells them they should know each other. And out of that, Professor Schwab, Mr. Schwab, they help create peace by bringing together in private dialogue people who need to talk privately and helping moderate that. And what I try to do is, and some of the companies I've created are because there is an idea, and then you find the right people to execute that idea together. And if they truly are the right people, magic happens.
Let's go to the next slide, Tom. Here's a brilliant picture of you with Henry Kissinger and the late and incredibly great Shimon Peres, former president of Israel. And there you are. That's the Holy Trinity.
Well, it's, you know what that is? That's a very young me with Henry Kissinger going, "Who the hell are you?" And but I had met Dr. Kissinger and always been a huge admirer of his through Hubert Berta at Hubert Berta Media. And, obviously the sense of Dr. Kissinger's role in, foreign affairs is legendary and in shaping the world we know today. My friend John Jackson, who founded and Susan Jackson founded the Jackson Institute at Yale. The Kissinger papers went there, and maybe one of the most memorable days of my life was spending the time with the aggregation of political, military leaders, diplomats, Dr. Kissinger. Now, Shimon Peres, we need more Shimon Pereses in the world. This man lived for peace. At the end of Davos, my colleague Michael Wolff and I would host the least known and best loved and attended dinner at Davos. It was about 100 of the most influential people in the world. And my favorite was Ofer Eshett, who was is now the head of the Peres Institute for Peace, but was chief of staff to the president, to Shimon Peres, would call. And I would get a call the day before and say, "Is the president invited again to dinner?" And it was the only dinner he loved to go to because we never asked him to speak. He met people he never met. He had the greatest time. And I would say, of course, it is our honor to have the president join us for dinner, to which he said, "Is it all right if the Mossad shows up an hour early as we do every year to sweep the room?" I said, "We love the Mossad, just have them come sweep the room and we will feed them in the process."
Very good. Let's go to the next slide, please, Tom. There's a distinguished picture of you. Where is that?
Well, that's at Davos, and I'm speaking actually about, cryptocurrency and entertainment and how they actually come together. And this is the kind of slide that I use to motivate myself to get back on the treadmill. And that's really important. Everyone should have an image of themselves that gets them to exercise more. And this is one of those images.
Brilliant idea. Let's go to the next slide, Tom.
Michael Mann is, we all grew up with Miami Vice, but the wonderful part about the world I live in is I get to meet, whether it's Ralph or Tom or the people in who are listening, the most remarkable people in the world. But the true, I am not an artist, but I've been allowed to work with great artists. And the difference between a working artist and a great artist is significant. Michael Mann, Robert Redford, Robert De Niro, Kevin Costner, these are people who don't see the world the way other people see the world. They actually can visualize things. They understand how images, words, performances come together. And it is, in my opinion, it is no different than Michelangelo. These people are the true artists, the true gifts to humanity. And there is no film Michael Mann has made that is not noteworthy. And I would just cite, for those that haven't seen it, go see two of his films that are probably not generally on everyone's list, which is Last of the Mohicans, where it is the most romantic but the most beautiful film about the American West and interpersonal behavior you will see, and The Insider, where I remember he gave me the script and I said, "Oh, we're going to do a movie about Lowell Bergman, a 60 Minutes producer and a whistleblower at the tobacco industry, and we're somehow going to make that entertaining." he and Eric Roth had written the script. I couldn't stop reading the script. The film is mesmerizing. Russell Crowe, Al Pacino, breathtaking. Most people have seen Heat. Just go look up the films of Michael Mann and enjoy them.
Let's go to the next slide, Tom.
Again, this is even worse. When you take the shot from the side and you're on stage, you think to yourself, no one will ever date me. And that is clearly the case. So, these are the kind, it's nice to keep the audience engaged by looking as if you're shocked. But that said, this causes me to sort of like go, I have that jacket. Fortunately, I don't have to wear it anymore because I have jackets that are slimmer that fit.
Well, very good. Let's, I think we've got one more slide. There's Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito is a gift to humanity. And this was when he was making Matilda. And, you think to yourself, this is a very challenging film. Is it a children's film? Is it an adult film? It is all of the above. But, whether it was Taxi or, all of the later work that he did, Man on the Moon, Danny is another of the absolute breathtakingly great creators. And if you haven't seen Twins, and if you haven't seen, War of the Roses, Romancing the Stone, this is why we have digital media today. Go back and see films that are timeless.
What have we got? I think we've got one more there, Tom.
This is an example of people who, when they get together, would never have met. This is actually, and I know this sounds crazy, my son Matthew's bris at the Peterson Automotive Museum. And, it was the first and last time they actually allowed a circumcision at the museum. And we took the entire top floor. And I figured if the kids who were there, like my other son, was bored, he could go look at cars. And it was kind of like a Saturday Night Live sketch. But this is Michael Mann and Michael Milken. So you're talking about, by the way, Michael Milken in the finance world is the Michael Mann of the finance world. And Michael Mann is the Michael Milken of the entertainment world. These guys see the world differently. Michael Milken sees around corners. He created the casino industry. He created the modern telecom industry. He basically financed Ted Turner. He backed people that no one else would back. And those are the people that we have started our conversation with. Those are the progenitors. All of the companies he financed are the progenitors of the world we're talking about today, the FANG world. All of these tech companies, either directly or indirectly, are outgrowths of the financing and the vision of Michael Milken.
Well, Tom, we're going to revert back to you now because unfortunately we've been somewhat beaten by the clock. But Sandy, I would just have to say, I loved what you'd said about the need to be curious, the need to be skilled, the need to be up to date, to be creative. These are the core elements, particularly the people that are watching this incredible interview with you. So, Tom, over to you.
Well, let me just say this. First, Ralph, as always, a superb job of driving this. But Sandy, oh my, I'm so mesmerized by the stories and the wisdom. And I will say this on behalf of the audience, the humbleness of you. For you to kind of rub elbows with the people that you do, you have just a genuine humbleness about you that is so admirable. So thank you.
Well,
very rare.
Two last thoughts on that. Firstly, I did put my email at the very head of the chat. So if anybody wants to write directly, please do. To me, it is the serendipity of life of people you meet who you otherwise would not have that have changed my life. And the one thing that I would say, because everybody who is listening here has this capability. When I was growing up in the Bronx, there was no way out of the Bronx. And I thought we were a middle-class family until I got to college and realized we were either lower middle class or upper lower class. And, I wandered into, at age 14, my mom was a ward clerk at Bronx Municipal Hospital, the sort of county hospital where people got shot every day. And it was affiliated with a medical school, Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And I don't know what possessed me. I think I had to do a science project. I walked into the office of a bearded, bespectacled, pipe smoking professor named William T. Norton, who changed all of our lives through his work on the myelin sheath and multiple sclerosis. And why Professor Norton, when I asked him if I could stay, said yes, and I spent 6 years in his lab. I would not be here with you today except for the kindness of not just Dr. Norton, but all those who followed. Everybody here has gotten here somehow. We all have an obligation to please pay it forward. Go out, and I'm sure you all do this. Just redouble your efforts for the next generation.
Fantastic.
Amen to that.
Wise words. Well, Tom, thank you very much. I think it's over to you, Tom.
Again, thank you to both of you rock stars for sharing your wisdom and your time. You've taught us a lot today, Sandy. Thank you so much. To the audience, thank you for your time and attention. We will be back here after the 4th of July. I hope everyone has a safe holiday. Be nice to each other and get your shots now. Take care, folks. Signing off.
Thank you, Tom and Ralph.
Thank you so much, Sandy.